It was the middle of December, and I was finally heading home for the holidays. My flight had been delayed multiple times, and by the time I landed, the airport was nearly empty. The exhaustion was settling in, but the relief of finally being home kept me going. I retrieved my luggage and stepped out into the freezing Ohio night. The streets were coated with a thin layer of snow, and my breath came out in thick, misty clouds. I had arranged for an Uber, but something about the night felt off. Maybe it was just the jet lag, or maybe it was the eerie silence that wrapped around the city like a thick fog. When my ride pulled up, I noticed the car was older, an outdated model with a few dents on the side. The driver, a middle-aged man with sunken eyes and a gaunt face, greeted me with a quiet nod. "Cold night, huh?" I said as I buckled my seatbelt. He didn't respond, just stared at me through the rearview mirror for a beat too long before putting the car into drive. The silence was heavy, suffocating. I tried not to think too much about it. Maybe he was just tired. The drive started normally, with city lights gradually giving way to the dark, empty countryside. My parents' house was a little outside of town, nestled between patches of forest and long, winding roads. As we drove, further away from civilization, I felt an uneasy sensation creeping up my spine. I glanced at the driver through the mirror again. His hands were gripping the wheel too tightly, his knuckles white. The GPS on his dashboard showed the right address, but something about the route felt unfamiliar. I had taken this road dozens of times before, but the twists and turns seemed wrong, leading us deeper into the darkness. "Hey, I think we missed a turn back there," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The driver didn't respond. I felt my heartbeat quicken. "Sir?" Still nothing. My fingers hovered over my phone, considering whether to call someone when the car suddenly slowed to a stop. We were in the middle of nowhere. No streetlights, no houses, just the dark outline of trees surrounding us on our all sides. "What are we doing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The driver finally turned to me, his face unreadable in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. "Car trouble," he muttered. I didn't believe him. Something wasn't right. My breathing grew shallow as I reached for the door handle, but before I could pull it, I heard something outside, a rustling in the trees. It wasn't the wind, it was movement, deliberate, slow. The driver turned his head sharply toward the sound, his expression suddenly filled with unease. That was when I realized he wasn't in control of this situation either. I locked my door instinctively. "Who's out there?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. The rustling grew louder, twigs snapping, footsteps, multiple sets. Then a low, guttural clicking sound that sent ice through my veins. It was an unnatural noise, something that didn't belong in the world of men. The driver's breathing had quickened, his hands shaking slightly as he reached into his glove compartment. My heart pounded as I saw the glint of a knife. "Stay in the car," he whispered, before stepping out into the night. The door shut behind him, and I was left alone, the only sound now my own shallow breathing. Through the windshield, I could barely make out his silhouette as he moved towards the trees. Then, suddenly, the clicking sound stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before, as though the entire forest was holding its breath. Then the screaming started. The driver's voice cut through the night, raw and filled. With terror, I couldn't see what was happening, but the way he screamed, like his very soul was being ripped apart, made my stomach churn with fear. Then came the wet, sickening sound of something tearing. And then, silence. I was frozen in place, paralyzed, with fear. Every instinct in my body told me to run, but my body refused to move. Then, slowly, something stepped out from the darkness. It was tall, taller than any human should be. Its limbs were elongated, its body twisted in unnatural angles. And its face, if you could call it that, was featureless, except for a wide, lipless mouth that stretched across its entire head. The thing was covered in something dark, something wet, blood. The driver's blood. The creature took a step toward the car, its head tilting unnaturally, like it was studying me. The clicking sound started again, reverberating inside my skull. Somehow I broke free from my paralysis and fumbled for my phone. My hands shook as I tried to dial for help, but the moment I looked down, the thing was gone. I gasped, frantically, looking around. The forest was still, but I knew it was there, watching me. Then, bang! Something slammed against the back of the car. The entire vehicle shook violently. My screams caught in my throat as I tried to start the engine, my fingers fumbling with the keys. The car roared to life, and without a second thought, I floored the gas pedal. The tires screeched against the icy road as I sped away. I didn't dare look in the mirror. I didn't want to see it again. I don't remember the rest of the drive home. All I remember is bursting through my parents' front door, gasping for air, and collapsing onto the floor. The police didn't believe me when I told them what happened. They searched the area but found nothing. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no footprints. It was like the driver and the thing that took him had never existed. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and still, I hear that sound again. The clicking.